I hear leaders say all the time, we need to develop our people. We need a stronger team. Why aren't people performing at a higher level? But quarter after quarter, nothing changes. In fact, very often things get worse because if you don't fix that problem, your lowest performing team members stay and your highest performing team members get frustrated and go somewhere else. And I think one of the big reasons why things don't change is because people look at the importance of talent development. And thank God most leaders believe it's important, even if they're not acting the right way to make things happen. But people look at the huge importance of it. So they think they need some big monster talent initiative. We're going to create an ABC company university and you're going to need to be certified in these things. And we're going to bring in great trainers and create this whole curriculum. And it becomes this big, just dollar suck. Just dollars flow in and not much flows out. And part of it is because it takes so long to create something like that, that by the time you create something, it's outdated, or by the time you create it, people are fed up with the investment and they've got quote unquote more important things to do. They're too big, take too much time, take too much money, and it takes too long to figure out whether you have gotten any return on that investment, or people just rely on their quarterly and annual performance reviews to solve all problems. And if you've heard me at all, you've probably heard me say a dozen times, I think annual and quarterly performance reviews are the worst invention ever created in business. So what do we do? What I want to share with you in this episode is a way that you can really start to have impact on your team. And I want you to focus on your team instead of focusing right now on how do we fix this problem at a company level. I want you to focus on your team. So if you're the CEO listening, that's your senior executive team. If you're the VP of sales, it's your sales team. But using simple targeted actions, I want to help you with some steps that will absolutely help you improve your team within the next 90 days. Are we going to solve the problems of the world in 90 days? Of course not. But we're going to see some real impact. And then once we do that for our own teams, then we could worry about, wow, how do I take these ideas and roll it out to the rest of the company? In my book, The Strength of Talent, I talk about this more at a company level, but do talk about in the book how you can get started by yourself. And I want to talk about something you have more control over. I don't care who you are in the company, whether you're the CEO or an accounts payable manager. You don't have immediate control over the whole company right now, but you certainly have control over your actions. So let's talk a little bit about how you create not what I'll call a 90-day sprint of talent development, coaching, re-recruiting, making tough decisions, challenging people, raising the bar. What's in this 90-day sprint? And before I get into the details, let me talk a little bit about the benefits of this 90-day sprint of taking action. One is in 90 days, 90 days is long enough if you focus to create some real visible wins. It's short enough that it allows you to hold yourself accountable and have other leaders hold you accountable for taking actions. 90 days, you could build these 90-day habits and have a habit of continuous development. The ROI you get back is going to feed more momentum. And in 90 days, there's a sense of urgency to get something done. Not we're creating ABC Company University and it's going to take us 9 months. No, I'm going to work with my team to have visible impact with a return on investment over the next 90 days. So let's talk about the different steps you can take here. And again, in my book, The Strength of Talent, I talk about this in much more detail on how to do it with your team, but I'm gonna keep it simple. We're talking about a 90-day sprint that you have control over. So I'm not gonna throw a ton of different things at you. But it starts with getting a clear picture of your team member, each of your direct reports' performance. We need to assess their performance. So when you think about each of your direct reports, not as a group, but individually, you're going to assess them using my talent density framework, which very simply is you're going to assess them along two axes, two different types of performance. One is productivity. Productivity is not about how long and hard they're working. Productivity is about results. It's not about getting a bunch of tasks done. It's about the results. So if a sales VP reports to you, it's not about all the stuff that VP of sales is doing. It's about the amount of revenue they're bringing in. It's about the margin on that revenue. It's about the pipeline that they're building. If you've got a CFO reporting to you, it's not about reporting necessarily, although that's part of it. It may be about, are they maximizing cash flow? Are they allowing our leadership team to make decisions based on return on investment of different spend? So anyway, the number one component, the first axis of performance is productivity. The second axis is culture fit. Culture fit is, think about it as, is this person you're evaluating making the people around them better or worse? Are they adding to the culture you want to create or subtracting from it? If you've got a specific communicated set of core values, non-negotiable behaviors, and I hope you do, it's about how well they're living and breathing those core values every single day. So what I want you to do, and if it's helpful to stop this and go do it, don't do it if you're driving, is for each of your direct reports, score them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Score them on a scale of 1 to 10 on productivity, and score them on a scale of 1 to 10 on culture fit. Now, in the strength of talent, I have a very specific set of guidelines as to, for culture fit and productivity, what a 10 means, what a 9 means, what an 8 means. Like I said, I want to keep this simple. You want more details, go read the book. But use your gut as best you can. Someone that is, from a productivity standpoint, it might be someone that is blowing away the goals you've set for them. Maybe they're a 10. Someone who's right about at that, maybe, approaching the goals you set or at those goals, maybe a 9, and so on. Over on the culture fit side, someone who is just a model of your core values, maybe a 10. Someone who's just living them consistently, maybe a 9. Someone that is constantly, hurting the performance and hurting the culture of the company and those around them. Someone who is disrespectful or not coachable, they may be a 3 or a 4 or maybe even lower. So score each one of your direct reports on a scale of 1 to 10, as I said, for productivity and for culture fit. And once you do that, we now know, we have a sense of how people are performing, and I'm going to help you categorize them a little bit. And again, I go into a lot more detail in the book, but those folks that you scored at least a 9 in both culture fit and productivity, I would call those folks your high performing team members. No shock there. Anyone who is a 7 or below in culture fit, I don't care what their productivity score is. 7 or below in culture fit, which means they may be having frequent problems with 1 or 2 of your non-negotiable core values. They're impacting the people around them in a negative way. Someone who's a 7 or below in core values, let's call those folks, I'm going to suggest we call those folks low culture fit. Someone who is a 6 or below in productivity, if they're not already a low culture fit, let's call them low producing. And then all the folks left over, let's just call them medium performing. So we've got high performing, medium performing, and two different categories of low performing. And the reason for the two categories of low performing, low culture fit, and low producing is because what I have found over many years of doing this and many years of being part of teams and leading teams is folks that are living your core values every day. They're respectful, they're coachable, they have a positive attitude, they want to do the right thing. If those folks are lower in productivity than you'd like them to be, they at least tend to be coachable. Coachable to get where you need them to get to become high performing, I don't know. They may not have the capability, but at the very least, at some level, they're coachable. But folks who are not living your core values, folks that are a bad culture fit, tend not to be coachable. Not because they're bad people, but because trying to coach someone to live core values they're not already living is like trying to coach someone to become someone they're not. So when we get to actions, which we're going to get to next, the actions you take for low producing folks versus low culture fit folks may be different. So you've done that assessment. And if you've paused this and actually done the assessment, awesome. If not, I hope you do it later. But I'm going to move on to the next step is, so what? So now I know I've got, a team of 5 people and I've got one high performing team member. I've got 2 medium performing team members, a low producer and a low culture fit. Who cares? Like, what do I do with that? Do I go back and tell each one of them, how I have quote unquote labeled them? And that my answer there is absolutely don't go back to people and say, hey, I did an assessment. And by the way, you're a high performer. You're a medium performer. You may want to get your resume ready. This is for you. What your team members, your direct reports are going to see is not that you've done this assessment and here's how you evaluated them. But if you follow the steps I'm about to outline, they're going to see that you are spending more focused time in the right areas with them. So when you think about the folks that you just evaluated, or hopefully you'll evaluate later, I want to start we're going to talk about actions for each of your direct reports. And I want to start with the highest performing team members you have, because those folks are the most important. Those are the folks you are going to leverage to be great. You don't create greatness by trying to maximize weakness. You create greatness by maximizing strength. So instead of over-investing in your low performers and under-investing in your high performers, we're going to start with your high-performing team members. And I'm going to list out for you a number of different actions you might want to take with and for them. Do not do all of these. 1 or 2 might fit, or maybe one of my ideas sparks a different idea. But the key is over the next 30, 60, 90 days, we need to be taking action. You need to be taking action with your highest performing team members. If they're not growing with you, they will quit and grow with someone else. So we need to work with them. By the way, these are the folks you probably love working with anyway. So spend some more time with them. What do? Give them a stretch project. There's something in the company that needs fixing, or an opportunity you want to move faster on. Give that to them. Challenge them to learn something new, do something new, be someone new. Increase their responsibility if you feel like you're stretched too thin. Put a little more on their plate. Now, we don't want to burn them out. So be cognizant of how much you're already throwing on their plate. But very often, highest performing team members want more. I've seen more high performing team members leave out of boredom than anything else. Ask them to mentor someone else. How could they take what makes them great and have that be a contagion that infects other people? Reward them, monetary or non-monetary. Maybe they deserve a promotion. Recognize them either in a formal all hands meeting or in a heartfelt kind of one-on-one informal situation. Get them more exposure externally to the industry. Maybe they should be speaking at the next industry conference. Maybe they need more exposure to your clients, or they would benefit from more exposure to your clients or to your vendors. Internal exposure. If they're not on the senior leadership team, maybe invite them into the senior leadership team to present some of what they're doing. Career planning. When's the last time you sat down with one of these folks you just assessed as being high performing? When's the last time you sat down with them and asked them where they want to go in their career and how you can help them get there? And please don't wait for an exit interview to find out why one of these folks left. Have a stay interview now. Ask them what they love about their role and how you can help them to do more of it. Ask them what frustrates them about their role and brainstorm some ways to fix it. Ask them what it would take for them to leave. Some of them will be honest with you. And maybe there's something you can do about it before they do leave. So, a whole bunch of actions for the folks you've just assessed as high performing. What do we do about the medium performing folks? Well, four different actions there, actually. Number one, why are they medium performing? If you followed the assessment, they're medium performing either because they're a little lower than you'd like them to be on productivity, and or they're a little lower than you'd like them to be on culture fit, living your core values, living your company's core values. So what do we do? Well, number one, maybe if they're lower than you'd like them to be on productivity, get in there and help them improve their productivity. What aspect of productivity are they falling down on and help them? Number two, if they're a little lower than you'd like them to be on culture fit, then what core values do they need to do a better job of living, and start working with them on that and coaching them on that. The third option is to change their role. If they are living your culture at a very high level, but they are lower than you'd like them to be on productivity, it may be because you're not effectively leveraging their strengths. Is there another role that would more effectively leverage their strengths? If you've got a salesperson who is great at building relationships but not closing enough deals, is there another role that's more about building relationships? Maybe it's a business development role where their job is to build relationships with potential strategic alliance partners that could refer you a lot of business. They can go from medium performing to high performing as soon as you make that decision if you could better leverage their strengths. The fourth option, and this might sound a little surprising for a medium performing team member, is you might need to coach them out of the organization. You need to determine first, what kind of role are they in? I believe there are two types of roles where we cannot accept mediocre, where good enough is not good enough. One is any member of your senior leadership team. So if you have got someone, if you're a CEO listening to this, and you've got someone on your senior leadership team that is performing at a medium level, and you don't believe they have the potential to move up to performing at a high level over the next 3 to 6 months, I would argue they do not belong on your senior leadership team. They have too big an impact cascading down and out from the organization to accept mediocre on your senior leadership team. The other type of role is any role that is a core competency for you or a strategic differentiator for you. The easiest example I can give you is Netflix. Think about what role or what types of roles differentiate them, right? It's probably not accounts payable. We could probably accept mediocre there if we're a leader within Netflix. But I don't think Netflix could accept mediocre in content development or content creation. I don't think Netflix could accept mediocre in their UI, especially the person driving and building their recommendation engine. So sometimes those medium performers need to be coached out of the organization to go become high-performing individuals somewhere else if they can't do it in your organization. Let's go to the low performers, and we'll start with low producing. Anybody who is producing at a low level, they have low productivity, but they're doing a pretty good job living the core values and maybe a great job living the core values. 3 potential options for them. Number 1, coach them on whatever aspect of productivity they're falling down on. Number 2, just like I talked about for the medium performing team members, change their role. They can go from low performing to high performing if they're doing a great job living the culture, but their productivity is low. If you could find a way to leverage their strengths and make their weaknesses invisible because it's not part of their role anymore, they can go from low to high performing. The third option for a low producer, for a low producing team member, is to coach them out of the organization. Now, I know that's tough. Whenever we talk about coaching someone out, firing someone, these are human beings. I know it's not easy to have that difficult conversation, to make that difficult decision, but sometimes as leaders, we let our loyalty to one person impact the other 25, 50, 500, 5,000 people within our organizations. We let it impact our clients. We let it impact our vendors. We let it impact our ability to sleep at night. So who are you trying to be loyal to? And if you're worried about a difficult discussion, are you really worried about that other person, or are you worried about how it's going to make you feel? The other thing I'd say is I believe with all my heart that everyone has the ability to be a superstar somewhere. Somewhere. And if you're holding on to someone who is low performing, you're actually hurting them. Now, I'm not saying when you fire someone, they're going to thank you for it. Not sure I've ever seen that. But long term, they really might thank you because you are setting them loose to go from low performing to find something where they can be high performing. Let's go to low culture fit. Low culture fit is the simplest, but maybe the hardest, if that makes any sense. There are only 2 options. You're either going to coach them up by helping them better live your core values, be a better culture fit, or you're going to coach them out. And let's be honest, and I said this earlier, most of the time, coaching someone to become a culture fit is a fool's errand. Now, we always need to try. These are human beings. And sometimes someone's just going through a rough time, or they're junior in their career and they need a little molding on their attitude. I know I did when I first started many years ago. But most of the time, culture fit is not coachable. And we need to be ready to make the tough decision so they're not hurting those around them. Even people that are high in productivity but low in culture fit, they're hurting the people around them. They're hurting your culture. They don't belong. So you might need to make some tough decisions. So I want to encourage you to write down, if you haven't already, these assessments, these scores. Document for you, not for anybody else right now. Document the actions that you are deciding to take for each of your team members with a target date. When are you having that difficult discussion? When are you going to give them that new stretch project? When are you having your stay conversation? When are you doing the career planning conversation? And then just take massive action now. Follow the plan and adjust as you need to. And at the end of the quarter, do it all over again. Who moved? Who stayed stuck? Who did you need to move out? How are you doing now versus last quarter? And I'm going to introduce a measure that I call the TDI, the Talent Density Indicator. Very simply, it's your percent of folks that you evaluated that are high performing minus the percent that are low performing, either low producing or low producing and low culture fit. So if you evaluated 6 people and 2 are high performing, actually, I'll make it easier math. You evaluated 8 people and 2 are high performing, which is 25%. And 2 of them were low performing. That's another 25%. You have a TDI of 0. 25% minus 25%. You have just as many high performing folks as low performing folks. If you have all high performing folks, your TDI is 100. 100% high performing, 0 low performing. All your folks are low performing, your TDI is negative 100%. And if all your folks are medium performing, your TDI is 0. It's a great way to benchmark how you're doing. And later, when you roll this out to other teams in the company, that becomes super, super important as well. And at the end of the quarter, ask yourself, from the actions you took, which actions had the biggest impact? What actions do you need to repeat or scale for the next quarter? Talent development, assessing talent is not an event. It's a 90-day sprint that repeats itself. So let's wrap this up. Simple first step. If you haven't done it yet, if you haven't paused this recording and done it, sometime in the next week, rate your direct reports. Document what actions you're going to take for each of them. If it helps, go out and buy my book if you haven't bought it already, called The Strength of Talent. All of this is there in more detail, more detailed actions, more detailed ways to evaluate. But for God's sakes, don't wait until you've read through the book. You can take the actions that I just talked about. You can take those actions now. I'd love for you to buy the book. Please buy the book, but don't wait. Take the actions now. The number one driver of profit growth is people growth. And you can just really impact the trajectory and the momentum you have in people growth just within 90 days. You do it first, just for your team. And then we could focus on how you expand that out to the company later. I always say, if you want a great company, you need a great leadership team. I hope I got you closer there today. See you soon.